Wait, don't scroll. Imagine discovering that the one person who filled your home with kindness didn't abandon you. She was stolen from you. Tonight's story isn't just about the most feared mafia boss in America. It's about a humble young maid whose gentle heart changed an entire empire, and the ruthless fiancé whose jealousy turned that kindness into a living nightmare. What happens when Don Alessandro Pietro uncovers the horrifying truth hidden behind the walls of his own mansion will leave you speechless until the very last second. Before we begin, welcome back to our family. If you're new here, you're officially one of us. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who loves emotional mafia stories, and tell me in the comments, which country are you watching from today? I always love reading your comments. Now, let's begin. Don Alessandro Pietro was the most feared Italian-American mafia boss in Chicago. His name alone made powerful men tremble. Yet inside the luxurious Moretti mansion, there was one person who could always bring warmth into the cold halls. Olivia, a beautiful 24-year-old maid, was loved by everyone. She treated every servant with kindness, cared for the elderly staff like family, and never expected anything in return. Alessandro quietly admired her honesty and humble heart, treating her with a respect no maid had ever received. The guards, cooks, gardeners, and servants all adored Olivia, but someone else was watching, and with every passing day, Caterina's jealousy grew darker. Don Alessandro Pietro had faced ruthless rivals, survived bloody betrayals, and built one of the most feared mafia empires in America, but he never noticed the silent war unfolding inside his own mansion. Every time he thanked Olivia for her hard work, every time he asked if she had eaten, every time he defended her when another servant made a mistake, Caterina's hatred burned a little deeper. To everyone else, Alessandro was simply showing respect to a young woman whose honesty had earned the trust of the entire household. But Caterina saw something entirely different. In her eyes, every kind word was proof that Olivia was stealing the man she intended to marry. Her jealousy soon became an obsession. Whenever Alessandro left for business meetings, Caterina would summon Olivia to empty hallways or forgotten storage rooms, where no one could hear her cruel insults. She mocked Olivia's humble background, accused her of dreaming above her station, and reminded her that a maid would always remain beneath the woman destined to become Mrs. Moretti. Olivia never argued. She lowered her eyes, apologized even when she had done nothing wrong, and quietly returned to her duties. One rainy afternoon, Alessandro unexpectedly found Olivia wiping tears from her cheeks in the mansion garden. Without asking questions, he gently placed his suit jacket over her shoulders and told her that no one who worked under his roof deserved to cry alone. Those simple words of kindness shattered the last piece of Caterina's self-control. Hidden behind a nearby window, she watched the heartbreaking scene with eyes filled not with sadness, but with pure hatred. At that moment, Caterina made a silent promise to herself. Olivia would disappear forever, and Alessandro would never discover the truth. Don Alessandro Pietro had no idea that while he was busy expanding the Moretti Empire, the greatest threat to his life was sleeping beneath his own roof. One quiet evening, after finishing her chores, Olivia carried a tray of fresh coffee toward Alessandro's private office, believing he had returned from a meeting. As she approached the corridor, unfamiliar voices echoed through the half-open study door. She stopped. The voice wasn't Alessandro's, it was Caterina's. Curious, Olivia carefully stepped closer without making a sound. Through the narrow opening, she watched Caterina speaking in a cold, calculated voice to two men she immediately recognized as members of the Romano crime family, the Moretti family's oldest and deadliest rivals. Olivia's heart pounded as Caterina smiled and whispered, "After the wedding, Alessandro will sign the final business agreements. Once everything is transferred into my control, you'll eliminate him. No mistakes this time." One of the men nodded before sliding a thick envelope filled with cash across the table. Caterina accepted it without hesitation, promising that nobody inside the Moretti mansion suspected a thing. Olivia's hands began to tremble. The tray nearly slipped from her fingers as the horrifying truth sank in. The woman Alessandro loved was planning to betray and murder him. Fighting back tears, Olivia slowly stepped away from the door, praying she could quietly escape and warn Alessandro before it was too late. But fate had other plans. Just as she turned the corner, one trembling foot stepped onto a loose wooden floorboard. Creak, the sound echoed through the silent hallway. The conversation inside stopped instantly. Caterina slowly opened the study door, her icy eyes locking onto Olivia's terrified face. In that chilling moment, both women understood exactly what had happened, and Olivia realized her life would never be the same again. Don Alessandro Pietro spent the next 2 days away, attending a crucial gathering of powerful Mafia families in New York, completely unaware that darkness had already taken over his home. The very night Olivia overheard Caterina's deadly secret, 2 masked men dragged the frightened young maid into a waiting van before sunrise. She fought with every ounce of strength she had, screaming Alessandro's name until a cloth was forced over her mouth and everything faded into darkness. By the time the mansion awoke, Olivia had vanished without a trace. Caterina wasted no time putting the final piece of her plan into motion. She gathered the household staff and tearfully claimed that priceless diamond jewelry belonging to the Moretti family had disappeared during the night. Moments later, security guards searched Olivia's room and conveniently discovered the missing necklace hidden beneath her mattress. The evidence looked undeniable. Security footage had been expertly edited to show Olivia entering the family vault after midnight, while forged documents suggested she had secretly planned to flee the country. Every lie had been carefully prepared long before that terrible morning. When Alessandro returned and heard the accusations, his heart refused to believe them. Olivia had never once given him a reason to doubt her honesty. Yet every piece of evidence pointed against the young woman he had trusted most. Standing silently inside her now empty bedroom, Alessandro noticed the small wooden cross she always carried hanging beside the window. Olivia would never have left something so precious behind. Deep inside, something felt terribly wrong, but with no proof and no sign of Olivia anywhere, he reluctantly accepted the painful story everyone else believed. From that day forward, the laughter disappeared from the Moretti mansion. The servants spoke in whispers, the hallways felt colder than ever before, and although no one dared to say it aloud, the house had lost its heart. 2 long years slipped by, but not a single day passed without Don Alessandro Pietro thinking about Olivia. The Moretti mansion had regained its order, yet it had never recovered its warmth. New maids came and went, each trying their best to fill the empty place Olivia had left behind, but no one possessed her gentle heart or quiet compassion. The elderly servants still spoke of her with tearful smiles, remembering how she never let them carry heavy baskets alone or end a day without sharing a kind word. Alessandro never spoke her name aloud anymore, yet every morning he found himself glancing toward the staircase, almost expecting to see Olivia descending with that familiar warm smile. Deep inside, he still couldn't believe she had betrayed him. Every time he remembered the wooden cross she had left behind, an uneasy feeling settled in his chest. Something about her disappearance had never made sense. Meanwhile, Caterina believed she had finally won. The wedding preparations consumed the entire mansion. Expensive flowers filled every hallway, famous designers arrived daily with custom gowns, and powerful Mafia families from across America began confirming their attendance. In just a few weeks, Caterina would become Mrs. Moretti, and with Alessandro's complete trust, the empire she had secretly desired would finally be within her reach. Then, on a cold autumn evening, everything changed. As Alessandro worked alone inside his office, a guard quietly entered carrying a plain brown envelope with no name, no address, and no return sender. Curious, Alessandro opened it. Inside was only a single photograph. His hands began to shake. His breathing stopped. Staring back at him from the faded image was Olivia. Thinner, bruised, wearing the same black and white maid uniform she had vanished in 2 years earlier. Her wrists were tightly bound, tears stained her face, and behind her stood a rusted metal door inside a dark, unfamiliar room. Scribbled across the back of the photograph were 5 chilling words: "She never betrayed you, she's alive." Don Alessandro Pietro read the photograph over and over until the edges of the paper trembled between his fingers. His heart refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. Olivia was alive. For 2 years, she hadn't abandoned the Moretti family. She had been suffering somewhere, waiting for someone to find her. Without telling Caterina or anyone inside the mansion, Alessandro quietly began his own investigation. He trusted only his oldest consigliere, Marco, ordering him to trace every tiny detail hidden inside the photograph. They examined the rust on the metal door, the cracked concrete floor, a faded warning sign hanging on the wall, and even the faint outline of distant hills visible through a tiny window. 3 exhausting days later, Marco finally found a match. An abandoned farmhouse nearly 4 hours outside Chicago, a property secretly purchased years earlier through a chain of fake companies. The registered owner had no face, no history, and no real identity, but Alessandro knew in his heart that Caterina was somehow connected. Refusing to waste another second, he armed himself and drove through the pouring rain with only 4 of his most trusted bodyguards. As night swallowed the lonely countryside, the old farmhouse finally appeared, standing like a forgotten grave beneath the stormy sky. Every window was boarded shut, and the silence surrounding the property felt unnatural. Alessandro quietly forced open the front door and searched every dusty room, finding nothing but broken furniture and years of neglect. Just as he prepared to leave, one of his guards noticed fresh footprints leading beneath a worn-out carpet. Alessandro pulled the carpet aside, revealing a heavy iron trapdoor hidden beneath the floorboards. His pulse thundered as he slowly lifted it open. A narrow staircase disappeared into complete darkness. Gripping his flashlight, he descended one careful step at a time until the beam finally illuminated a small underground room. His world stopped. There, chained to a cold concrete wall, wearing the same torn black and white maid uniform she had disappeared in 2 years earlier, was Olivia. Weak. Bruised, terrified, but alive. The moment Don Alessandro Pietro saw Olivia chained to the cold concrete wall, every ounce of strength he had built as a feared Mafia boss shattered. The flashlight slipped from his trembling hand, crashing onto the floor as he rushed toward her. Olivia slowly lifted her head, her once bright blue eyes now dull with exhaustion, barely believing the man standing before her was real. Tears flooded Alessandro's eyes as he dropped to his knees and desperately fumbled with the heavy chains around her wrists. "Olivia. I'm so sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I failed you. I believed the lies. I should have searched for you. I should have trusted my heart instead of the evidence they placed before me." Every word carried years of unbearable guilt. His hands shook so violently that it took several attempts before the lock finally snapped open. The chains crashed onto the floor, echoing through the silent basement. Olivia was too weak to stand. As Alessandro gently caught her before she collapsed, she looked into his tear-filled eyes and, despite everything she had endured, a faint smile appeared on her bruised face. With the little strength she had left, she reached up and softly touched his cheek. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. Those 4 words pierced Alessandro's heart more deeply than any bullet ever could. She hadn't hated him, she had believed in him every single day of those 2 endless years. Fighting back tears, Olivia gathered enough strength to tell him the horrifying truth. She revealed how Caterina had secretly allied herself with the Romano crime family, promising them control of the Moretti Empire after marrying Alessandro. The jewelry theft had been completely staged. The security footage had been altered. Every servant who questioned Olivia's disappearance had been threatened into silence. Caterina had kept her alive for one reason alone, because the moment Alessandro signed the marriage documents, Olivia would be executed, leaving no witness behind to expose the conspiracy. As Olivia finished speaking, Alessandro's grief slowly transformed into something far more terrifying. The sorrow disappeared from his eyes, replaced by the cold fury that had made Don Alessandro Pietro the most feared mafia boss in America. The grand cathedral was overflowing with power, wealth, and influence. Leaders of the 5 most powerful Italian-American mafia families had gathered beneath magnificent crystal chandeliers, accompanied by judges, politicians, businessmen, and loyal capos from across the country. Everyone had come to witness what the newspapers were already calling the wedding of the decade. Caterina stood proudly at the front of the aisle, breathtaking in a custom-made white wedding gown embroidered with diamonds, convinced that in just a few minutes she would become the queen of the Moretti Empire. Every smile she wore concealed the dark secret she believed had been buried forever. Olivia was gone. Alessandro trusted her completely, and nothing could stop her now. As the orchestra began to play, the massive cathedral doors slowly opened. Don Alessandro Pietro stepped inside wearing an elegant black tailored suit, his expression cold and unreadable. The guests rose to their feet as he walked calmly toward the altar. Caterina smiled with relief, believing she had finally won. But instead of taking her hand, Alessandro stopped several feet away. The music suddenly ended. An uneasy silence swept across the cathedral. Alessandro slowly turned to face the hundreds of guests, his deep voice echoing through the magnificent hall. "This wedding," he said calmly, "will not be taking place today." Confused whispers instantly filled the room. Caterina's smile disappeared. "Alessandro, what are you doing?" she asked, forcing a nervous laugh. Without answering her, Alessandro raised one hand toward the entrance. The enormous cathedral doors opened once again. Every head turned. A young woman slowly walked inside wearing a simple cream-colored dress, her face still carrying the scars of unimaginable suffering, but her eyes filled with quiet strength. It was Olivia. Alive. For several endless seconds, the entire cathedral stood frozen in complete silence. Glasses slipped from trembling hands. Powerful Mafia bosses stared in disbelief. Even the bodyguards forgot to breathe. Caterina's face drained of every color as terror replaced confidence. The woman she believed had disappeared forever had just walked back into her life, and with her came the truth that would destroy everything. The cathedral remained frozen in absolute silence as Olivia slowly walked to Don Alessandro Pietro's side. Every pair of eyes shifted between the young maid everyone believed had vanished 2 years earlier and Caterina, whose confident smile had completely disappeared. Alessandro gently took Olivia's trembling hand before turning to face the hundreds of guests gathered inside the magnificent hall. His voice was calm, but every word carried the weight of a death sentence. For 2 years, I believed the woman standing beside me had betrayed my family. I was wrong. A giant screen behind the altar suddenly came to life. The first recording echoed through the cathedral, revealing Caterina's secret conversation with members of the Romano crime family, discussing Alessandro's assassination after the wedding. Gasps spread across the room. Then came copies of hidden bank transfers, shell company records, and payments made to the abandoned farmhouse where Olivia had been imprisoned. One by one, trusted investigators stepped forward, confirming every document was authentic. Finally, Olivia found the courage to tell her own story. Fighting back tears, she described the night she overheard Caterina plotting Alessandro's murder, the moment she was kidnapped, the endless days spent chained beneath the farmhouse, and the threats made against her life if she ever revealed the truth. Many of the older Mafia leaders lowered their heads in disgust. Even the most ruthless men in the room understood that harming an innocent woman who had served her family with loyalty was an unforgivable disgrace. Caterina desperately denied every accusation, but her voice was drowned out as detectives entered the cathedral carrying signed warrants. They walked directly toward her and fastened cold steel handcuffs around her wrists before the eyes of every powerful family in attendance. As she was led away in humiliation, Alessandro slowly removed the diamond engagement ring from his finger and placed it at her feet. Looking her straight in the eyes, he spoke the words that echoed throughout the silent cathedral. From this moment forward, Caterina, our engagement is over. You are no longer part of my future, and you will never again be part of the Moretti family. Several months passed, and with each sunrise, life slowly returned to the Moretti mansion. The once silent halls were filled with laughter again, the servants smiled more often, and for the first time in years, peace had replaced fear. Olivia had regained her strength, though the memories of those 2 lost years still lingered quietly in her heart. She spent her days helping in the mansion as she always had, insisting on folding laundry, serving breakfast, and caring for the elderly staff despite everyone's attempts to stop her. To Olivia, kindness had never been a duty, it was simply who she was. One bright Sunday morning, Alessandro Pietro gathered every servant, bodyguard, cook, gardener, and trusted member of the Moretti family inside the grand hall. Confused whispers filled the room as Olivia stood quietly among the maids, unaware of what was about to happen. Alessandro stepped forward, his voice carrying both authority and warmth. Today, he began, I want to correct the greatest mistake of my life. The room fell completely silent. Alessandro turned toward Olivia and smiled. From the day you entered this house, you gave this family nothing but loyalty, honesty, and kindness. You asked for nothing in return, yet you gave us everything. I failed to protect you when you needed me most, and I will carry that regret for the rest of my life." Olivia's eyes immediately filled with tears. Alessandro gently took her hands before everyone watching. "From this day forward, you will never again wear a maid's uniform." A servant stepped forward carrying an elegant gift box. Inside was a beautiful cream-colored dress and a set of keys to a private guest residence on the Moretti estate. Alessandro looked into Olivia's tearful eyes and continued, "You are no longer one of our servants, you are family. This mansion will always be your home." The grand hall erupted into thunderous applause. Many of the older servants wiped tears from their cheeks as they embraced Olivia one after another. For the first time since she had walked through those gates as a frightened young maid, she no longer felt like someone who worked in the mansion, she truly belonged there. As the golden evening sun bathed the Moretti estate in warm light, Alessandro looked around at the smiling faces that filled the home once more and realized that true strength had never come from fear or power. It came from protecting the innocent, standing beside those who remained loyal, and never allowing cruelty to silence kindness. If Olivia's courage and Alessandro's loyalty touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who loves emotional mafia stories, subscribe for more unforgettable journeys, and tell us in the comments, what was your favorite moment, and which country are you watching from? Until next time, remember, kindness may be tested, but it will always outlive cruelty, ***.